What is it about a truly baffling crime? A mystery that just refuses to be solved, that grabs our attention and won't let go. That feeling that something fundamental remains unknown is just so, well, unsettling.
It is. And when you think of truly unsettling cases, the one we're plunging into today is right up there.
Absolutely. We're heading to New Orleans, a city brimming with history, music, and, as we'll discover, a particularly eerie chapter in its past. We're talking about the Axeman of New Orleans.
Yeah, a figure who brought terror to the city in 1918 and 1919.
A remarkably strange case on so many levels, isn't it?
Oh, completely. The choice of weapon, the specific group targeted, and of course, that unbelievable letter. It all combines to create a truly unique and chilling story in the annals of crime.
It really does. We've gone through, well, a stack of news reports and historical accounts to extract the most crucial and compelling details for you. This is your direct route to understanding this bizarre and frightening period in New Orleans history.
Yeah, our goal is pretty straightforward: to dissect the key facts of the Axeman's reign of terror and to, unravel the persistent mysteries that continue to surround this case. What do we actually know with certainty, and where does the realm of speculation really begin?
Okay, let's unpack this then. The city's peace was shattered in the spring of 1918, May 23rd specifically.
Right. Joseph and Catherine Maggio, Italian grocers, found murdered in their home.
Brutally murdered.
Yes, the reports from the time, they're pretty gruesome. Throats slashed with a razor and then attacked with an axe.
And it was their own axe.
Their own axe, yeah. That detail just adds another layer of horror, doesn't it? Joseph was found by his brother Andrew, actually still clinging to life, but he died soon after. Catherine's injuries were described as exceptionally brutal.
And Andrew, the brother, he was the initial suspect, right?
He was almost immediately. His razor was used, which, understandably raised questions. Why wouldn't he have heard anything?
Makes sense.
But the police pretty quickly determined he wasn't involved. What's particularly striking, though, is what they found at the scene.
Ah, a message.
Exactly, a chalked message. It chillingly declared, "Mrs. Maggio is going to sit up tonight just like Mrs. Tony."
Wow, that's an incredibly disturbing reference.
It is. It refers to another unsolved crime from 1912, the shooting of Anthony and Johanna Sciambra, also Italian grocers. She was nicknamed Mrs. Tony.
So it strongly suggests a link, or at least this awful awareness of past violence against the Italian community.
It really does, and tragically, the Maggio murders were just the beginning.
The opening act, as it were.
Pretty much. For the next year and a half, stretching right until October 1919, a wave of similar attacks just plunged New Orleans into fear.
And a pattern emerged, right? A deeply unsettling one.
Definitely. Forced entry, often by carefully chiseling out panels of doors.
Yeah, I read about that. Very specific.
Very. Then using the victim's own axe as the weapon, usually while they were asleep, and the homes were ransacked, but...
But nothing much was ever taken.
Exactly, which rules out simple burglary as the main motive.
And the victims, especially early on.
Overwhelmingly Italian grocers. It's important context that by this time, Italian immigrants owned roughly half of the grocery stores in New Orleans.
Which, sadly, probably made them targets.
It seems likely, yes. There was a lot of xenophobia back then. The sources we looked at mention this prevailing Anglo-Saxon population that viewed Italian immigrants with, well, suspicion and prejudice.
So a potential motive right there, this deep-seated xenophobia.
It's a stark and disturbing possibility how societal prejudice could intersect with this kind of violence. Now, there were several attacks that really stand out that kind of underscore the growing terror.
Absolutely. Like June 27, 1918, Louis Bassumer and Harriet Lowe.
Right, the grocer and his mistress. Attacked at their store, both initially survived, and Harriet described the attacker as mulatto.
A term used then for people of mixed black and white ancestry.
Yes, and that description led to the arrest of Louis Ubicon, a black employee of Bassumer's. But there wasn't any real evidence, so he was released.
And the media had a field day, didn't they? With the affair and...
Oh, yeah. Very sensational coverage. Even unfounded accusations about Bassumer being a German spy, which was disproven, but still.
And then Harriet Lowe tragically died in August. Complications from surgery.
Yes, but then the twist. On her deathbed, she suddenly claimed Bassumer himself attacked her.
What? 2 years?
Seriously, which led to Bassumer being arrested and tried.
Yeah.
He was ultimately acquitted, though. It's just a very confusing situation. Accusations flying, stories changing.
And incredibly, on the very same night, Harriet Lowe died, August 5th.
Another attack. Anna Schneider, 8 months pregnant.
Attacked in her bed.
Yeah.
She survived, thankfully, Probably struck with a lamp, they thought.
And remarkably, she gave birth just 2 days later. Healthy baby.
But the really eerie part of that one, no forced entry.
None at all. How does someone get in and out like that? It just deepens the mystery.
They arrested an ex-con briefly, James Gleason.
Yeah, he tried to evade police nearby, but again, no concrete evidence linking him. The police were clearly struggling, no leads, no logical thread.
Understandable. And then, just 5 days later, August 10th, more violence.
Joseph Romano, an elderly man. His nieces, Pauline and Mary Bruno, found him, horrific head wounds.
And they actually saw someone fleeing.
They did. Described as a dark-skinned, heavy-set man, dark suit, slouched hat. Romano died 2 days later.
And the scene. Did it match the pattern?
Some elements, yes. A bloody hatchet found in the backyard. Signs of forced entry, the chiseled back door. This attack really solidified the public fear. A serial attacker was definitely out there.
It's no wonder paranoia started gripping the city.
Absolutely. People reporting suspicious activity constantly, finding axes just left on their property. Imagine that.
Terrifying. And then you had that retired detective, John D'Antonio, with his theory.
Right, D'Antonio. He suggested this idea of a dual personality killer, like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde figure.
Yeah.
Driven by this, insatiable, motiveless lust for murder. He even tried to link these attacks to earlier ones, the Cleaver attacks from 1910, 1912.
Also targeting Italian grocers.
Yes. So, you see, even before the Axeman, there was this history of violence against that community.
It paints such a vivid picture of a city just completely on edge, desperate for any explanation.
Any pattern, any sense to it all.
Then, March 1919.
Yeah.
The terror crosses the Mississippi.
Yes, into Gretna, March 10th. Charles and Rosie Cordemelia, grocers there, attacked in their home.
And their infant daughter, Mary.
Tragically killed, yeah. It brought the horror even closer to neighboring communities.
And the aftermath of that attack was just awful. Rosie accused their neighbors.
She did. Irlando Giordano, who is elderly, and his son Frank. Despite some really big inconsistencies, like Irlando being quite frail and Frank maybe not fitting the entry point.
They were convicted anyway, just based on her word.
Solely on Rosie's testimony. It's chilling, isn't it? How fear and maybe existing prejudices could just sway things like that. Frank got the death sentence, Irlando got life.
A stark reminder of the potential for injustice in times of panic.
Definitely. But the story took another turn. Charles, the husband, he denied his wife's claims. Vehemently. He divorced her.
And then Rosie recanted.
She did. Admitted she'd lied out of jealousy. The Giordanos were eventually released December 1920, but think of the damage done. It just shows the chaos and deep distrust that had spread.
It really does. And just 3 days after that Cordemelia attack, the whole case took that incredibly bizarre turn.
The letter.
The infamous letter from hell, postmarked March 13th, 1919, sent to the media.
Claiming to be from the Axeman himself, declaring he was a demon from hell, invisible, responsible for the murders. Just, wow.
The language in it is something else, isn't it? So theatrical.
Raw, completely bombastic, full of these pronouncements about his supernatural powers, and then the really peculiar threat.
For the following Tuesday night, March 18th, 12:15 a.m. precisely.
Yeah, he threatened more attacks
Unless people play jazz music in their homes at that exact time.
Yeah.
Then they'd be spared.
Jazz it or else. Basically, the city was already terrified, but this letter, it just amplified everything to an almost unimaginable level.
And led to that extraordinary reaction.
You can only try to picture it, right? Total panic, sure, but also, New Orleans essentially threw a citywide jazz party.
Clubs packed, phonographs blaring from homes all over the city. It must have been one of the loudest, most surreal nights ever.
And the craziest part, no attacks happened that night.
Nothing. Which just fuels all the speculation, doesn't it? About the letter, who wrote it, what was going on.
Exactly. And that leads right into the skepticism about whether the letter was even from the real Axeman.
Right. Historians like Miriam Davis, criminal profilers.
Yeah.
They don't really buy it, do they?
Not generally, no. Their reasoning is pretty solid, actually. The letter has this sophisticated tone. It uses classical allusions like Tartarus.
Which doesn't quite fit the profile.
It seems unlikely to match the working class background suggested by the admittedly limited eyewitness descriptions. The language, the style. It feels off.
And there's that other theory, the really fascinating one about the musician.
Joseph John Davila, yeah. A local jazz musician who, very shortly after the letter appeared, released a song called The Mysterious Axeman's Jazz, Don't Scare Me, Papa.
Talk about timing.
Right. And get this. He actually used a Times-Picayune newspaper cartoon about the Axeman letter on his sheet music cover.
No way.
Yes. So the theory is maybe he wrote the letter. as a publicity stunt for his song. It's bold, but
It's kind of plausible, isn't it, given the timing and the promotion angle?
it certainly is. And even at the time, some were skeptical. The West Bank Herald newspaper criticized the Times-Picayune for sensationalizing the letter, for causing unnecessary fear.
It really highlights the media's role in all this, shaping perceptions, maybe even amplifying the terror.
Absolutely. But whoever wrote the letter, that brief break in the violence, it didn't last.
Sadly not. The attack started again, August 10th, 1919. Steve Boca, another grocer.
Attacked in his home, he survived but couldn't remember any details, and as usual, a bloody axe left behind.
Then September 3rd, Sarah Lawman. Attacked inside her locked home.
She also survived, incredibly, but severe head injuries, memory loss, and again, bloody axe found outside on the lawn.
It's just relentless. And the final known attack in New Orleans, October 27, 1919.
Mike Pepitone, grocer, murdered in his store. His wife, Esther, actually saw someone fleeing.
Did she get a good look?
She described a large man wielding an axe, but couldn't give a detailed description. Not enough to really help investigators.
And after that, silence.
Yeah. The terror that gripped New Orleans for, over a year, it just seemed to vanish as suddenly and inexplicably as it began.
Which leaves the biggest question unanswered. Who was the Axeman?
Exactly. And over the decades, there's been no shortage of theories, potential suspects.
One name comes up quite a bit, Joseph Mumfree, often linked by crime writers.
Yes, Mumfree, also known by other names like Monfree or Manfree. Colin Wilson pushed this theory, based partly on Robert Tallant's writings.
And the connection centers around Esther Pepitone, right, Mike Pepitone's widow.
It does. So after her husband's murder, she moved to Los Angeles, remarried. Her second husband then disappeared, strangely enough. Then, in December 1921, this Joseph Mumfree apparently shows up, confronts Esther, demands money, jewelry,
And threatens her.
threatens to kill her just like he killed her husband, Mike. So Esther, she shot him dead.
Wow. And she claimed he was the man she saw fleeing.
That's what she told police, that Mumfree was the man she saw running from the store the night Mike was murdered.
Is there any other evidence linking Mumfree?
It's mostly circumstantial. There are possible links to Pepitone's murder and maybe even to that 1912 Siambra shooting where a suspect named Mumfree was mentioned.
But it's not solid proof.
No, definitely not. Experts are divided. There's no concrete evidence directly tying him to all the axe killings. Plus, there are conflicting reports about where Mumfree even was during the Axeman's active period. Some records suggest he might have been in jail for parts of it.
So still very much a mystery. It really shows how hard it is to solve these cold cases, doesn't it? So much conflicting info.
Absolutely. And Mumfree isn't the only theory, of course.
What else has been suggested? Mafia, maybe? Because of the Italian grocer victims.
That was speculated early on, yeah. But it's mostly discounted now, mainly because some victims survived, which wouldn't be typical for a targeted mafia hit. You know, they usually don't leave witnesses.
Good point. So maybe just a single disturbed individual? Or even copycats.
Those theories are out there too. A lone maniac, perhaps? The idea of multiple killers seems less likely, but you can't completely rule it out.
And based on what little we do know, can we even build a profile?
It's tough. The eyewitness accounts are limited and often contradictory, but generally. They suggest a white, working-class male, probably in his 30s at the time. The way he got into houses, using that railroad shoe-pin to chisel doors, suggests someone with burglary experience.
So skilled in breaking and entering, at least.
Seems that way. Some profilers have suggested maybe a sexual sadist or someone with just uncontrollable homicidal urges, but it's all speculation, really.
And after the New Orleans attack stopped, did he just disappear? Or pop up elsewhere?
Well, there are some unconfirmed reports, more like local legends, of similar attacks on Italian grocers in other Louisiana towns later on. Alexandria, DeRidder, Lake Charles.
But nothing definite.
Nothing substantiated, no. And after those alleged sightings, the figure of the Axeman just vanishes from the historical record completely.
So we're left with a truly enduring, unsettling, unsolved mystery.
Exactly that. The Axeman of New Orleans. Brutal attacks, seemingly random but also targeted.
The backdrop of intense xenophobia.
That completely bizarre jazz letter.
And in the end, no definitive answer. Just nothing.
And while the Mumfree theory is compelling, it's just not enough. It's circumstantial. The true identity remains one of true crime's biggest, most frustrating enigmas.
You can see why it had such a lasting impact on New Orleans, though. Exacerbating prejudices, becoming part of the city's darker folklore.
Oh, definitely. The fear, the sensationalism, it all cemented the Axeman's place in history.
So, as you reflect on this deep dive into the Axeman of New Orleans, here's a final thought for you. What do you make of that jazz letter? Was it genuinely from the killer, however strange, a calculated ploy to create more fear, more confusion?
Or maybe something else entirely, like that musician theory, a desperate, maybe cynical attempt at self-promotion.
Think about the psychological impact. Getting a message